So how do you work with photography in Canva? There's a couple things you can do. There's some free photos that are available on Canva, which are okay. There's some that you can purchase, but instead of purchasing photos, I recommend going to a website called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S. These are all free to use. So almost all of the photography I use throughout this class are found on Pexels, and I didn't pay a dime for it. So when you go over a photo, whenever you download a photo, make sure you have the CCO license. I go over this a little bit later in the resources section of the class, but that allows you to use your photo in advertisements. So let's go ahead and click back over to Canva, and we're going to look at photography here. So let's go ahead and upload. I've already uploaded. This is where you go to upload. A couple of different Pexel photos that I thought worked well. So all you have to do is drag and drop. Canva is very intuitive. I don't have to go over a whole lot of details like I would if I was teaching Photoshop or Illustrator, because this is so intuitive. It's drag and drop. It's very easy. So I have this kind of nature photo I can kind of bring in. Let's actually bring in a person shot because I want to go over some effects as well. So let's go ahead and drag in a person. Let's see, let's drag in this guy right here. So all we have to do is drag it bigger to make it bigger. And let's say I want to crop it. I think there's too much on the left and right, and that's very easy to do. You just double click your photo, and it's going to give you another bounding box. And this is basically your crop box. You'll be able to crop the photo, click the check mark to however you'd like. So if you wanted to make a collage, or if this is kind of how you wanted to crop the photo. So I want to undo that, so I'm just going to double click. I'm going to make this full cropping again and check the box. I'm going to make this larger. I'm going to make this full screen. This is a social media post. So let me see if I want to put some text right here. So I want to edit, apply some filters to this photo. So you go up here to the upper left into the filters panel, and you have some preset filters similar to Instagram, where it has a different presettings for different things. You can even do grayscale if that looks cool. Let's go back to normal. And if you go to advanced options, it's not really advanced options. These are really easy to play around with. So there's a couple of options. You can make it brighter or darker, which will depend. Darker actually works really well if you're doing it as a background photo, if you're going to have some type on top of it, contrast. And I would just suggest going on here and playing around to see. A great way to make a photo black and white is just to go to advanced settings like we're in now and reduce the saturation. And you have a black and white photo. You can also change the tint as well, which works really well if you go black and white, and then you're able to kind of apply almost a duotone effect, a single tone effect to a photo. So that's pretty neat. We'll be doing some of that a little bit later on. Blurring is really good. Sometimes I like really sharp images, and sometimes if it's a background, blurring is nice. And vignette adds a little bit of a black border around the edges. It's a very subtle effect, so I don't always use it, but sometimes it's helpful. Of course, you can flip a photo horizontally, vertically. Sometimes it makes sense to have this orientation if I wanted to have type on this side. So that's some very basic photo editing and filters. Just kind of play around with that filter panel, and you could do a lot with photography. So let's say I want to crop a photo that's not just a boring rectangle or square. So there's a couple of different things you can do. You can actually put photos in circles, triangles, make collages. And so I'm going to go over that real quick. I'm in the Elements tab, which is really where all the action happens in Canva. And I'm actually going to click on the Frames option. And you can load in any of these shapes, and then you can drag a photo right in to create that shape. So let's do a couple of shapes to show you as an example. Let's do kind of a simple circle. This one does not, these have little borders. This is just a plain circle. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And let's do a triangle. And then I'm going to go back to my uploads where I uploaded some custom photography. I'm just going to drag and drop. It's that simple. So I'm going to drag and drop. Let's figure out something here. So there you go. You already have these nicely cropped shapes. If you wanted to change the cropping inside the circle, just double click and you're able to maybe focus more on the center of that orange, or we can go back to what we had so you can kind of see that white outline. So that's perfect. Make it a little bit bigger, zoom in more on the woman, and you can drag, you can actually take this rotate tool right down here and you can rotate these images as well. So you can really build your own collages. You can crop, let's say we want to get rid of this element. So we're just going to delete. And we're going to delete the element. And we're going to make this triangle. Let's actually rotate. There's our rotate tool. Make this a little bit bigger. And we can actually build a design out of this. We can actually have a triangle here where we could put some type, and a triangle here as well. So that's some neat things you could do with photo cropping by using the frames portion in your elements tab, which is right here. Another thing you could do is you can actually build collages. So go to your grid tab, which is right next to your frames tab, and I'll show you an example. So you can see all these different templates of different frames. So let's go ahead and bring in a really varied collage. Let's do one with varied shapes. Perhaps this one. So it's going to automatically populate in the square shape that I have of the social media post. And what's great about this is you can actually resize this to make it only a portion, or you can bring it back to full size. And I'll show you something cool you can do after I load in some photos. I'm going to just drag and drop a couple of photos that I already have in stock. These are totally random, not meant to tell a story or anything. They're just dragging and dropping. And so as I reduce this, it automatically resizes. So I can actually change the dimensions and make this wider and put something up top. So it could be very powerful. And look how quick I made a collage. If I were to do this in Photoshop and Illustrator, it would take probably 10 times the amount of time. That's why Canva is so awesome when it comes to saving time and whipping up some designs. So let me see. I want to do something a little different. I wonder if I can rotate. Sure enough, this is an object just like anything else in Canva, and that means I can rotate it. So I'm going to take this rotate tool, and I'm just going to rotate it and drag it. So you can kind of create a cool angled collage here. And of course I can go back in and edit the cropping of the photo so it works a little bit better. So let's see how that looks. So that's kind of cool. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and drag a different image into here. That works a little better. How about this one? And you can actually double click each individual square and do individual cropping. I'm going to zoom out. Sometimes zooming out really helps in this situation. Let's see. I'm going to click OK. And it can adjust some of the cropping. Let's put her in there. Of course, we can have different photos, so let's go ahead and drag that one in instead. And you can just play around with different cropping. Just double click the image if you want to adjust anything. So I want to show more of that plate. Click OK. So just kind of some basic things you can do with different templates. Let's see what else they have. I'm just going to select all, and I'm going to delete the whole element and go back to my main elements tab. So they have plenty here. So let's go to a more basic one. Here's one with just 4. Let's go to uploads and drag in. Just drag in some quick stuff. So and there you go. You can create mood boards the same way using this technique, and I'll go over that later in the class. So there's kind of your basic how to load photos, how to crop them, and how to do some editing.